Welcome to Bits About Books, the home for conversations with authors of breakthrough books on sales, marketing, and business. I am your host, Subhanjan Sarkar, founder of Pitching, the next generation buyer-seller engagement platform, where our mission is to make buying easy. Our guest today is Ramli John, and we speak with him about his insightful new book, Eureka, the product onboarding playbook for high-growth B2B companies.
A lot of the concepts that I actually was teaching a new course or a cohort course in Maven.com. And I started that in 23. And a lot of the things that I was teaching was like, oh, this is based on my discussion with different companies like Zapier and LastPass and different places where like, oh, okay, that's a great question. I should think about how I would respond to that. And so I was workshopping it through to teaching it first, and then that and kind of formulating new approaches and methods and frameworks and kind of putting that into a book.
Ramli R.J. John is the founder of Delight Path and author of the best-selling book Product-Led Onboarding. With 40,000 copies sold worldwide, his book has become the go-to guide for thousands of B2B leaders looking to build an onboarding strategy that turns their users into lifelong customers. Ramli has worked with companies such as Zapier, Leadpages, Appcues, Vidyard, Bynder, and other fast-growing B2B companies to level up their onboarding experience. He lives in Toronto, Canada, with his wife Joanna and their 2-year-old toddler Zane and their 5-year-old dog Ro. Now, on to this Eureka moment with Ramli John. Ramli, welcome back to Bits About Books. I'm so glad that we are here and talking about your second book.
Thank you. I'm super excited to come back for my second book. It's been 4 years since my last book, Product-Led Onboarding.
I know. I obviously want to know how this all began. My first question on this is, after writing Product-Led Onboarding, what made you write another book on onboarding?
Yeah, that's a great question around like why another book on onboarding. Part of my goal with this one is to really like to dig in my specialty. When I wrote the first book, Product-Led Onboarding, it was more generalized and it was open to product-led, both in the B2C, consumer products, and as well as B2B. But I've come to realize that the last 15 years of my career have been focused on B2B. And there was certain things in that book that that's great, but it doesn't apply to B2B as much. So I wanted to really specialize into the challenges that business-to-business companies face when it comes to onboarding. And it really digs down to a lot of the reason why onboarding in B2B space is hard. It's not necessarily because of the product. It's because of the social structure of that company where they need to get buy-in, or the emotional buy-in the emotional challenges that they face when they have to kind of show and prove the value of this product that they just convinced their boss to pay $250,000 a year for, right? Like now you're like, oh, if it doesn't work out, my job is on the line. And it really is about those challenges that a lot of consumer products like Duolingo or Canva or something else that is lower price might not face, because it's lower. First of all, it's lower price, but it's targeted towards consumer versus B2B. So that's where Eureka comes in. I actually like to think about it as a second edition of the book. It's like a more of a specialization of the Product-Led Onboarding, this new book, Eureka.
Interesting. Does that mean that you have some more onboarding focused thin slices in the making? Are you working on more books which are more focused on specific industries or specific verticals?
That's a great. It's still in the works. I'm figuring it out actually. What is next in my career and specialty? That's 100% of potential. Obviously, everybody's talking about AI now. So is it about AI onboarding? Is it about AI experiences? Is it about creating? So I'm thinking about it, but I'm already working potentially on a third book, which a concept that that's still in the works. So I don't want to share too much about that because it's still in the works. So
Okay.
it might change completely. So
Sure.
it's like, oh, right.
Of course. And I will come back to the AI bit at the end, but
Yeah, of
but
course.
let's
Yeah,
let's
that's
go on
exciting.
because it's an obvious question, right?
Yeah,
You wrote product led. The book was very well received. Lot of talk about it. At that time, you were still working with Wes, if I remember correctly.
that's correct.
When did you decide that it's time to write this new book, which is focused on B2B SaaS space?
Part of it is my transition from full-time employment. I was working at Appcues, surprise, a product onboarding software company, and transitioning out of that and starting my own consultancy, Delight Path. And part of it was like, what can I write and share my process about how do I codify my process? And specifically, I work only with B2B companies. I don't work with consumer. There have been some mobile apps that have reached out for consumer that I have said no because that's not my specialty. And so that's the goal of this book was that was the main instigator was like, I have a new process. I've learned a lot more about onboarding since 4 years ago. Things around workshopping through with a team that I didn't cover as much and I didn't cover at all in the first book. And how do you bring it together a team to kind of figure out the different solutions for onboarding that applies more to B2B. So that's really what triggered and motivated this book is to help share this new approaches and concepts and new learnings that I've had in the last 4 years in this in Eureka.
So when did you actually decide to write this, and how long back was that?
I would say it was about September 24 when I started kind of like brainstorming it and kind of discussing with my colleagues and other folks. That's around the same time I left Appcues was around September, October.
So you were already workshopping this, or you started the workshopping process later?
I was already developing new approaches, like different frameworks and different so a lot of the concepts that I actually was teaching a new course or a cohort course in Maven.com. And I started that in 23. And a lot of the things that I was teaching was like, oh, this is based on my discussion with different companies like Zapier and LastPass and different places where like, oh, okay, that's a great question. I should think about how I would respond to that. And so I was workshopping it through to teaching it first and then that and kind of formulating new approaches and methods and frameworks and kind of putting that into a book. So to answer your question, I was kind of workshopping the concepts before I started thinking about writing the book itself.
Right. So you have figured the process into 5 steps, and then you codified each into 3 chapters. How did this structure come about? I mean, was it something which was apparent to you before you started? Did you write it down? Look, this is what I'm going to do, or was it organically developing as you were writing the book and you said no, it cannot be in the 5th or the 4th one, it has to move to the 2nd stage? How was that process like?
Yeah, I already had the basic structure before I started writing, kind of having the framework. I wanted one of the questions I really tackled earlier on that I had to figure out was when I wrote the first product-led onboarding book, each part of the framework, the Eureka framework. I also talked about Eureka in that book, but each chapter is one framework. So E is establish your team, and that was a whole chapter. And it was a long chapter, right? It was like, 5,000, 6,000 words. So it would take you 15, 20 minutes to read it. And I was kind of struggling with that because some of the books that I've read in the last few years, things like Tiny Habits or Atomic Habits or things like, Very Good Copy by Eddie Schleiner, the chapters were very short. So what that made it easy is for me to start a chapter and finish it within one sitting or one night, and I don't have to like kind of, okay, what page was I at? Well, like, was it halfway through that chapter? So I asked some folks, built like an early readers club, which we can talk about before I even like finish. When I finished two chapters, I started an early readers club for some folks. I asked them, do you prefer long chapters that are a few, or do you want more chapters that are shorter, but like, and overwhelmingly people said they like shorter chapters on onboarding, right? If you're thinking about onboarding, you want to give them bite-sized knowledge rather than like one whole chunk. And it's like, that would kind of defeat the purpose if it's hard to onboard people to this book because it's a long chapter. So I ended up doing 3 to 4 chapters. I was like, in my mind, like, how would I split this each section up to 3 to 4 chapters? And then I kind of broke it down, built a structure, kind of chapter headings before I started writing the rest.
Right, right. Interesting. So tell me about this early readers club. What made you do that, and who were invited in?
Yeah, it's something that I actually did for the first book, but not as well. What I mean by that is there's this great book called Write Useful Books by Rob. Oh man, I forgot his last name, but he's the same guy who wrote the Mom Test. Oh, okay. But yeah, and it talked about how when you're writing a book, you should write it like you should launch it like a product, and product people, they know to have beta users or beta testers. And so that's what I did for my first book, was have like a beta readers club, all by email. But one of the things I learned was there's a really great opportunity to build a community around this, people who care about that topic, and they would buy in, and then they would kind of provide feedback and meet with you. So for my early readers club this time, rather than the first time I did it for free, I actually charged like pre-order. It was like $40. The higher tier one, you get like a one-on-one call with me, would be $100. So I charge like for the early readers club, so people had buy-in, they had skin in the game. And so about 100 folks joined in to kind of buy in. It's a good way to test that these people are not just tire kickers. They're not here, I'm going to be an early reader club, but they don't invest into it, so they end up not giving feedback. But if you've already bought into it, I got a ton of great feedback from different folks.
Nice. And where did they come from? I mean, where did you promote this, and where did these folks come from?
I had a great list already. I had an email list. I've been writing a newsletter about like 14,000 folks in that list. I announced it in LinkedIn as well, which is my choice of social platform right now. And then I just reach out to different Slack communities, say, hey, I'm writing this new book, B2B onboarding. The concept is this, and the title is Eureka. So I'd love for people to check it out.
Very interesting. And would you have any idea where you got most of your members from? Was it from your newsletter, or was it from LinkedIn?
Yeah, it was mainly through email. It's always, email's always been the highest ROI. So like you already have a relationship with folks there, and made it super easy to kind of like, I'm in. So
my assumption from what you just told me is that your actual writing time was not very much, because there are 10 odd chapters. I'm sorry, about 15 chapters, and typically you would have taken a couple of days to write each one of them. So your actual writing process was pretty short and pretty focused, which is wonderful. I mean, if people can figure that out, I think a lot of people who think they have a book in them would get them out, right?
Yes, I totally agree.
Right. So when you look back, this 15 years of your experience around onboarding, look at the Product-Led Onboarding book and this one, what are the fundamental mistakes product companies are making when they think of customer onboarding, or are they not thinking at all?
Yeah, that's often the biggest mistake the teams make when it comes to customer onboarding, is they make the assumption that the first thing they need to do is like, okay, we got to fix this. Let's get a product tour. Let's set up a product tour, or let's jump in and write some more emails, or let's redesign the whole sign up flow, right? And the challenge with that is it's skipping the whole important step around first principles, which is really deeply understanding that it takes multiple team members to see perspective and what are the challenges, and understanding what does success look like for users. What does success look like for those people, those new customers? Because if we don't have a clear picture of that, then the analogy I have is it's like you're building a bridge. Onboarding is like a bridge from the way that a person is to the way that they're about to be in the future, the promised land. So they're in a place where full of frustration and challenges and grief and heartache. And you're promising that your product, your service will totally change their world. It'll make it easier. It'll make it better. It's the promise that you're making. So that bridge is what onboarding is, that transition from old to new. And without a clear picture of what the new looks like, a lot of teams end up building a bridge that's very scary. First of all, it's not fully formed, and worst of all, it leads to the wrong place. Imagine building a bridge and the engineers realize, oh my goodness, we actually built the bridge a kilometer in the wrong direction. You're like, you just wasted all that effort. And so that's the reason why in the Eureka framework, the whole place about building and figuring out, should I use a product or email? It's a fourth step out of a 5-step process. And everything before it is about forming that team, understanding success, reverse engineering from sign up to success is the first three steps of the the Eureka framework, because it's really about understanding what is it that the user really see as success, and how do they get there? What are they changing from? What is the journey that successful customers took before? And okay, now that we have that, now let's think about tactics and solution and approaches before we am. So that's, I think, the big mistake often teams make is they jump right into building. And often this is a result of lack of time or pressure from leadership to show results right away. But without really the fundamentals and the foundation, we end up wasting a lot of effort, time, and resources.
When you say try to define the success, in B2B, typically products actually deliver multiple things. It's not necessarily just one thing, right? And possibly it's difficult to define what success looks like, especially if it is not being built on the back of some early research or early customer conversations, right? If it is a product being built out of the idea which came into the founder's mind, and they might be right, I mean, whatever they're building. So question to you is that how do you, in a complex software, how do you define customer success?
Yeah, I would take a look at what is that idea of a promise that they want? What is the goal that the customer truly wants? You talked about how founders have this idea already in their head, like, oh, this is what I think our customers want. And that's a great place to start off, making some, that's an assumption. But if, when the book, I specifically said, hey, this book is not for companies that are startups, that are early stage. This is for companies that have some successful customers. So I would talk to the successful customers you currently have, especially new ones that have been happy, and asking them, what did you change from? What is what is your previous solution? Like, what didn't you like about it? Like, what is what triggered you to start looking for a new solution? Right? Was it the frustration? Is it the price? Is it lack of future? Is it you hired somebody new and you need to do something. And then from there, like, what were you looking at? What's your solution set? And why did you pick us? Like, why us over others? And it's really this process is for people in product is essentially the jobs to be done interview, right? The jobs to be done as a framework and a theory. The idea that people hire products or services to complete a certain job, and really digging into like what is that job that they're hiring your product to do, and what triggered them and made them look for something and choose you specifically. And that's where it really is about. It's like mapping out that path and journey from the very beginning, and kind of like really mapping out what success looks like for that particular user or customer.
Very interesting. And the companies who are doing this successfully, which part of the organization is actually doing this interview? Because a lot of time people are afraid that if I go and ask why you chose us, they'll suddenly figure out they shouldn't have chosen us.
That's the that if that was the case, it's like, oh, what did you guys make a mistake? And when it comes to who asked this, I'm finding most of the time it's the product or user research team. In my previous role at Appcues in marketing, I have done this as well. So there would be that. And that's a reason why the first step I talk about in Eureka is establish a team, because what might happen is the product or design team does this, and then the marketing team does it again because they didn't realize the product team already did it. So it's really about making sure you're sharing that resources. And let me tell you that for a lot of companies, they talk a lot about collaboration and connection, and there often is still a wall between them. And really, I believe that the teams in the future that will win, especially talking about AI, what would separate us, your company from another company, if they can use AI vibe coding to recreate your feature in a day. Like, what would the difference would be? What the customer experience looks like? How can you make customers feel great and really delighted? And that comes with like this experience that you have your team talking together and connecting with each other.
Absolutely. It's time for a short break. Stay with us. After the break.
Yeah, the 3 pillars, especially in B2B, is first of all, product experience, which I talk a lot about in the first book, Product-Led Onboarding. The second thing is around educational content, things like onboarding emails, knowledge-based articles. A lot of great B2B companies like HubSpot and even Slack have academies, and that's part of the onboarding process. They have blogs and videos, all this multimedia approach to really educate customers and users, not just about how to use your product, but also on how to really change their method or approach or workflow. And the final thing, and this now mainly applies to B2B because of the price point, is around human touch points.
You are listening to a Business Podcast Network original. Podcasting is the fastest growing content marketing opportunity, which is untapped. We can help you craft your audio strategy and help leverage the wide reach and easy streaming capability that the smartphone penetration provides. It is easy, it is powerful and personal. Talk to us to find out how podcasting can help you build your brand and reach out to your targets like never before. Write to us at bpn@bizcast.in. That is bpn@bizcast.in. Business Podcast Network. Podcasts end to end.
Welcome back. I'm Subhanjan Sarkar, your host for Bits About Books and founder of PitchLink, the buyer-seller engagement platform. Let's dive right back into the episode where we left it. So let's get into the book. We're talking of the fundamentals. The 3rd chapter talks about the 3 pillars of successful B2B onboarding. What are we talking about here?
Yeah, the 3 pillars, especially in B2B, is first of all, product experience, which I talk a lot about in the first book, Product-Led Onboarding. The second thing is around educational content, things like onboarding emails, knowledge-based articles. A lot of great B2B companies like HubSpot and even Slack have academies, and that's part of the onboarding process. They have blogs and videos, all this multimedia approach to really educate customers and users, not just about how to use your product, but also on how to really change their method or approach or workflow. And the final thing is, and this now mainly applies to B2B because of the price point, is around human touch points, where often the biggest barrier to onboarding is not the product experience or product friction, it's actually human resistance. And in that case, human resistance requires human intervention, right? When I say human resistance, change things around change, org-wide change, where it requires multiple teams. Like think about how people bring on analytics tools like Amplitude or Mixpanel, where you can't just have one person install it, and especially for bigger B2B companies, you'd have somebody from product ops and product and marketing and sales that require to be fully bought in that Amplitude is our solution. And in that case, that often requires human intervention or human touch points to really champion and push through that change management or change effort required. So those are the three pillars: product experience, educational content, and human touch points.
Do you see, you mentioned about resistance, and I think that's a very important point, and I would like to know what you think. Do you think that the resistance is uniform, or do you think some categories, like for instance, any software that is trying to cater to sales, it's particularly more difficult because salespeople, what I hear, are most reluctant to try anything new,
That's
right?
true. Right.
So, I mean, does it depend upon the kind of product you're selling? So, depends. I mean, your approach will depend upon the market within the organization that you're trying to sell into, or is it more or less uniform? No, I think all of them needs the same kind of effort.
That I think you nailed it there. That it really does depend on your product. Like I just mentioned, Amplitude, which requires huge effort around change management, because it requires plugging in a lot of analytics and things like that. Compare that to something like Lovable, which is like an AI prototyping tool. You can get started on that easily. Like there's a single player mode versus a multiplayer mode. And what I mean by that is, can one single user get value out of that product right away? So think about like Figma, where one user, one designer can design something easily. So they're successful already. But of course, you get more value if you have more people leaving comments there. Compare that to something that requires really a multiplayer mode, or else you don't get value, like Slack. One person on Slack, not going to be valuable. But if you have like 50 people, then it starts becoming like, okay, we're replacing email with this. We're more collaborative. So in that case, that does require more folks and different things. And that's a product, and there's also who you're selling to. Like you're totally. I laughed and smiled when you said salespeople are resistant. I have found that consistently, right? Anything that adds friction to their life, where it's stopping them from hitting their quota or getting their commission, is like, I need to learn that? Do I really need that tool? To them, any new tool that they add to it, and I'm generalizing. I'm not a salesperson myself, sure. Just based on my experience, is that they are resistant to any kind of change compared to, let's say, marketers. Marketers is like always looking for new tools, right? They're, oh my goodness, there's an AI writing thing. Oh, it's an AI SEO tool. Yes, give it to me. Or like, oh, that's an AI image generator. They, as a marketer, I was like, oh, I love all of this stuff. Give it to me. So it's a totally different experience there rather than. So it really does also depend on who you're selling to when it comes to singular resistance. So I guess you can look at resistance or friction, social friction, as, is it like a personal friction? So where I'm resistant to that change, or is it an org-wide resistance, where right. It's multiple people within that organization that is resisting to it because they're deeply ingrained to that different another product, and it requires them to completely change the whole team or whole organization towards that new solution like Slack.
One just quick follow-up question. I know you were in Vidyard earlier, and I don't know whether you know Ethan Butte. He wrote a book on human communication, and he has been on the show a couple of times.
Nice.
Uh, and Ethan actually, he used to work for BombBomb, and he sent out like 15,000 video messages while he was there. My question to you is, at Vidyard, did you find salespeople actually taking to the idea that video can be something I'll use? Because even now when I talk to people, actually the adoption of video, although there are huge number of tools, is very, very low. Would you hazard a guess why?
I think it's just that it takes up time. It really takes up time to film a video or like shoot a quick video. And I find it valuable for higher value leads or more engaged potential customers compared to something. Because if it takes up 5 minutes of your time to shoot a video, you can only shoot 12 in an hour. Compared to an email, I can send 100 emails in an hour, right? Maybe 200 if I have an automation, and it becomes a numbers game. But for quality, it shows human connection, like it's real. Like I got a video once where like, Ramli, here is where I think your website could be breaking, and I was like, oh, this is a personal video, and it made a difference. All right, I replied back, awesome, thank you, and got me to respond to that specific outreach from a salesperson. And it does make a difference, I believe, if it is that human touch. Even now, you can say, oh, Ramli, why can't you scale video with AI? Like at this stage, like it's not there yet. I think AI video is not there fully yet. If I tried cloning myself, I think using I forgot what the tool was, and like that doesn't look like me. It looks robotic. Like it's not me. It sounds like me, but it looks off. Something's wrong. And I think our eyes are more attuned to visual or video. You can fake images potentially, make it look real, but video is really hard. And I think that could be a differentiating factor at the moment if folks use video and reach out to folks.
So talk about this cross-functional team. I mean, even in sales, people say you should have cross-functional team. It should not be separate silos. Customer support, marketing, sales should all be one team, because that's when real communication happens. But like you said, people are uptight. There's still a lot of walls. I mean, we talk about it. We talk about it a lot, but we are not doing much to break it down. Tell me the core rationale of why, for customer onboarding, which will be core to retention, to getting upsell or whatever, I mean, delivering value, how a cross-functional team makes a difference.
Yeah, I really believe that it requires cross-functional team for a few reasons. I think first of all, the analogy that I bring up in the book, and I shared to folks around this, it's like the parable of the blind man and the elephant, where you have different people who are blind. They're touching the elephant. You have one blind man touching the side of the elephant. It's like, oh, there's gotta be a wall. And then somebody's touching the nose. It's like, no, there's gotta be a snake. And then somebody's touching the tusk. It's like, no, this has gotta be a spear. And somebody else touching the ears, and it's like, this gotta be a fan. And what happens is, like, you have each of these people are the functions. They're like, somebody's like, oh, we're the ear function team, and that's all we see. And somebody else is like, oh, we're the stomach function. All we see is this. And what happens with that is that you actually miss the whole bigger picture of what is success for that customer, because you have this segregated information. And not just that, but I think they miss out on where potentially the biggest friction in that journey is, right? Where just removing that specific friction could unlock a lot of different things. So that's the reason, one of the reasons why I suggest a cross-functional team. So do you have a bigger picture of what success and friction looks like? But on the other hand, solution side, now that we've identified the problem, let's talk about solution. We just talked about the three pillars of successful B2B. You got product experience, you got educational content, and you got human touch. Who owns each of those pillars? Right? You got the product team for the product experience, you got educational content, typically the marketing team, and then human touch, you got sales and customer success. So if you don't have a united cross-functional team working on a solution, you'll have a one-prong approach to the solution where you can be more effective when across the board, all three of them are working hand in hand, depending on who the customer is. You would maybe have more human touch for enterprise customers, or more educational content for engaged users, or more product experience for self-serve users. And if that is not fully orchestrated, you don't have an experience that feels amazing to the customer itself. So I think that's from identification of the problem to figuring out which is the friction holding back the customer, all the way to solutioning and figuring out the solution. If you don't have a team that's across the different functions, you end up missing out on what could be potentially the thing that unlocks customers to actually experience your product fully and become lifelong customers.
Right. So the friction is really internal and not really so much of the from the customer side.
It's actually both, right? It's actually that's I call, in one of the chapters, I call this the hidden friction causing all the other friction. The hidden friction is that internal friction, the walls and the barriers. And the reason why there's external friction in the customer experience is because internally the friction exists and you're not able to fully identify this. And when people talk about onboarding friction, the first thing they think about is, oh, how do we make our product easier? And the result of why the product experience is not easier is because the teams are not working together hand in hand. And a good indicator that a team is kind of broken in terms of internal friction is if you ask the different teams, what is our activation moment? What is success for our customers? And I did this at Appcues when I was working there. I asked a product manager, a customer success manager, somebody from marketing and sales. And they all had different responses. And that's like a big red flag for me. It's like, 1 second, like if we don't even agree on what is success for our users, what is the moment where like, yes, they're now good? Then like how do we work together? How do we drive all the users towards that through the three pillars, the educational content and product and customer success, if we don't agree even where the endpoint is of that bridge in that journey of the onboarding? So I think that's a great way to check, hey, if you ask your different team members what activation and what success look like for users, then you have a problem with that internal friction.
Right. Absolutely. So how do you actually define success then? So this was something I asked you a little bit earlier as well. How would you define? I mean, you talk of 3 dimensions of success. How would you define? Because obviously it is dependent on the product, the user, and so on. And as I was saying, that some of these products have multiple users using it for different purpose, different outcome. How do you actually get it into a frame and say, okay, apply these ideas, and it will sort of tell you that this is what success looks like?
Yeah, and I would do this process repeatedly where I talk to customers, and that there's you already clued into it. There's the 3 dimensions that I look at for specific, for customer segments for a product, and I look at, first of all, the functional success. What is the thing they're trying to do? What is the customer job, or what is the functional success? What is the act or completion that they're really trying to accomplish with your product? And I think a lot of teams know specifically what this is, but they often miss out on the second and the third one, is around emotional success. So what are the success they feel after achieving your product? And the reason why this is important is human beings are emotional. They're trying to achieve something. There's fears and doubts. Change is scary. How do you make people feel secure? Like and by describing the emotions that they would feel after achieving your you're using your product correctly. That's one way to do it. The final thing is around social success. How do you want your users to be perceived by the colleagues or their bosses? Because that's very important in terms of B2B, because a lot of B2B products, the price point and stickiness increasingly becomes higher when multiple users or use your product within the same company or account. And making sure that you have a champion that are selling your product in is going to be super important. So getting those three and defining those three successes and when is the right moment is going to be super critical. And I would repeat this process once again for different jobs of your product, and as well as different segments that you might have for your particular B2B product as well.
Right. I think that provides a segue for us moving to the next segment. And let's talk about mapping this onboarding success roadmap. So how does one go about doing that?
Yeah, it's specifically for, I keep going back to B2B because,
Yeah,
sure. I actually do this backwards because you got to have the end in mind first. And I call this the ultimate win. What is the ultimate win for that user or that account? And that goes back to what is one action in the product that they indicate, that early indicator that they have successfully used your product. And it's just the first time they do something, and it really ties back to your ultimate user success as well. So let me give an example. For us at Appcues, when Appcues is a product onboarding software, the ultimate success is for them to onboard the user successfully using Appcues itself. So what is like an ultimate win? What is the first indicator? And we discussed it internally. I was part of a Tiger team around figuring out and improving our activation. We finally ended up on a spot where we our ultimate win, or other people call this activation moment or the aha moment, whatever you want to call it, is when a user first installs Appcues and activates a user flow, and one of their user actually comes and sees it and performs an action. And that is an ultimate win leading up to the user success. Other products, if you think about it, like Calendly, it's the first time a prospect books a time with you if you're a salesperson. So it should be super simple and like super easy. You can use data to kind of find correlation. I think a lot of B2B companies, they don't have a large enough data set to kind of find a statistically significant correlation. So I would say just make an assumption. What is a sticky action in your product for new users? When you do that action, it indicates that they're about to achieve user success. And that's the ultimate win. And kind of working backwards, I figure out the different wins and success journey. I believe the second most important win in that onboarding success journey is the first win. It's that I call this the first day win, because for a lot of B2B products, it could take about 12, it could take maybe even 30 days until they achieve their ultimate win. For us at Appcues, we found that you have to install the Appcues snippet in your dev environment and get approval and start building a flow and launching that, beta testing that, and showing it. So it could take up to 14 days for somebody to achieve the ultimate win, which is launching it to a real live user and seeing the data through that. And so a first day win that we define is that what is a win that a user can do within the first hour or first minute or first day that would kind of propel them to the next step in their journey. And we defined it as actually when a user starts building, like they start building a flow. And that's doesn't require a lot of external effort, like from a colleague. You can start building a flow within a few minutes. So we really optimize the first 7 or 8 minutes of a new user to start building right away, to kind of like, okay, that's a good indicator that they're moving towards the right direction. So then once you have that milestone, different milestones for wins, then that's essentially the onboarding success journey.
Got it. So when you look at products that are instantly liked and used vis-a-vis those that are not, what actually differentiates the two kinds?
Can you give an example, like something easy like Duolingo? Is that what you're talking
Yeah,
about?
something like Duolingo or even maybe Slack. I don't know, you start using and then you ask your colleagues to join. Maybe some, and people sort of uh, take instant liking. And I don't want to name a particular product because
Yeah.
I'm really asking you
Mm.
what you think. And the ones which are like really good products, but takes a long time for people to actually sort of get used to them.
I think those products that are easy to use, the ultimate win can be your first day win, right? That, you mentioned Slack. Actually, their ultimate win is, I think, when they have 50 people within the same organization sending 10,000 messages. That's what Stuart Butterfield, their CEO, mentioned. So that could take 30 days, so that's their ultimate win. And their first day win could be two people from the same company messaging each other, right? But if it was a simple product, like if, let's say, the kind of simple product like Calendly, let's say, one person, one sales team, right? It's a scheduling calendar scheduling tool, and their ultimate win is the same thing as their first day win, because there's only one person in for that specific company, right? Where they're all, they've scheduled that in. So to your response, I think it could be both the same. It could be a really shortened thing. I find for a lot of B2B companies, though, that there is a journey, and it does require some time to reach that ultimate win, where it does take and that is one of the challenges of B2B companies, where it takes connection, integration, building, setting up before they see the ultimate win, versus more traditional, prosumer products like Canva or other things where it's quite easy to get started and there isn't a lot of setting up before you can see value right away.
True, true. So let's jump to the end. Is there at all a concept of lifelong adoption, or is this like a defined life, like a 4 or 5 year time frame? Uh, and is that something for which you can lay the foundation when the customer was onboarded first?
I totally believe so. I really believe that the journey to, unless it's a product that never releases another new feature ever, right? Which there are some products that they don't release new features or new functionalities or new expansion. But if your product is continually adapting and changing, especially with lately, almost every product has added on AI, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's if that's the case, then this is a lifelong adoption journey, right? There's somebody quoted this, and I love the term everboarding, where you're continually onboarding your users, your new customers, to more advanced use cases or other products. So for multi-product companies like HubSpot, where they have HubSpot, hub sales and hub marketing and hub support, where those are totally different product lines within the same company. How do you onboard them to the next product line you have? And that is totally, that is part of the journey that you have to, that your customers or users are really going towards.
Right. And before we wrap this up, my question to you, I mean, we touched upon this in the beginning. Looks like AI is going to do all of this that we just spoke about. And the human touch that you said was so critical
Right.
may not be critical anymore. So where do you stand on this? What kind of changes do you see are actually coming? Because there's a lot of them which are already out there.
100%. I think I I truly see the power of AI when it comes to adoption and onboarding is helping personalize. And the term I got from somebody from Miro, Joanna, actually, I forgot her last name, but she called it hyper personalization, where right now, for every new experience or segment personalization journey for different segments, for different type of job. Somebody has to create that. They have to build that journey. They have to design it. They have to write it. They have to create that. And I totally see a world where AI would build a journey for you depending on who you are, what company you're from, what your goals are, and it doesn't even have to ask you. It knows where you've come from. This is like fully dystopian world where it knows you, and it's like maps out. And what I like in it too is like people have talked about like a billboard, right? And it comes to it, me and you walk to it, but it knows us, and I see totally something else on that billboard, and you totally see something else in that billboard. It's a different ad. We're both looking at it at the same time. It's personalized to me, and it could have 100 people there. They all totally see something different. And it's totally targeted for who that's scary. But imagine that, but not billboard, but product experiences. Like when you're fully adopting, depending on your learning style, it creates a learning plan and a learning journey and an onboarding journey for that. And it kind of, in a modular approach, kind of builds it together like a Lego piece. And it's now tailored for you. So your journey is totally different from my journey. It could be totally different for 100 different users. And I think that would be a totally cool world when that happens, where this is what onboarding could look like.
And how close or far is this?
That's a cool. I've been asking around. I think somebody's building it right now. I hope so. I don't know of any companies. It could be one of the current onboarding tools like Bynder or Intercom or Amplitude or something else like that. I think it is. Don't quote me on this. I think within the next 5 years, this is what will become a reality, where it could be actual agents, AI agents building this flows depending on the different user that you have.
And where do humans fit in that equation?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, in my opinion, it is tough to make. There's still that human touch. I think that human connection. Unless we live in a world where AI is walking among us and we can't tell they're humans, right? I recently listened to the CEO of OpenAI, Sam Altman, talk about how he believes in the next 10 years we'll see humanoids walking around us in human form, but they're AI. Unless we live in a world where AI is among us, then I think there's still human touch there. There's empathy, like real empathy and human connection that we can feel with real. Obviously AI can fake that, but like it's always off. Right now there's something off, right? And when it goes wrong, it goes wrong terribly. Like I saw this guy post up how he asked a chatbot like, "Oh, do you guys have this feature?" And the chatbot says, "Yes, we do. We have it here. It's coming." And then a human intervene and saying, "Oh, sorry, the chatbot is wrong," right? Like it's actually not coming. And I was like, "Oh my goodness!" That talk about things going wrong, where from a customer you feel duped and kind of like, "Oh my goodness, that sounds off." So I think unless we reach a point with humanoids and maybe artificial general intelligence AGI, then there's still touch approach for humans to be here.
Yeah. It's human hallucination to AI hallucination. That's what we're headed.
It's so true, and if it goes bad, like it's a terrible experience for a customer. Like it's, if you were on the other end, I'm like, what? I wanted this and I bought it because your chatbot said it does, and like now I want a refund, right?
Yeah. I mean, we have to totally rehaul the legal system where chatbots can be sued and so on.
Yeah, totally. And that's is it a world where I want to live in, where we don't need human connection? I don't know. I don't know. I think like that. That's where it'll get really interesting. Where maybe the differentiator of companies in the future is not the product. It's how well they use human connections. How well they build those relationships, and because that's hard to replace with AI.
One interesting, I was having some conversation with somebody, and it went that just 3 years back, when we were going through COVID, we were yearning for human connection, although something like a Zoom or a team was actually sort of facilitating connection. But we knew that this is not enough. I wrote to you that when I'm in Toronto next, we're going to catch up for a coffee.
Right.
End of the day, how can you replace that? It's not really only in context of onboarding, of course,
Right.
but the kind of prediction that you're having, to echo what you just mentioned about Sam, Vinod Khosla spoke about this bipedals, and they will be all over, and they'll be very cheap, and they can do stuff, and they'll be cooking for you, and so on and so forth to start with.
Right.
I get it, but what kind of a world will that be?
Yeah. Imagine they feel warm, like it's a humanoid, it's a bipedal robot that you totally can't tell if it's human or not, because their skin is 37 Celsius or whatever that is that human said. They blink and they have 5 fingers on each hand. Like that. That is a scary world to live in, because how do you know somebody's human? And right now you can tell. Right now you can 100% tell.
Yeah.
Bits About Books is brought to you by PitchLink, the buyer-seller engagement platform. PitchLink makes buying easy by enabling high-quality engagement between buyers and sellers through its presentation and discussion modules. Sellers create customized sales narratives using sales collaterals and personal videos, and reach out to prospects through a non-intrusive, buyer-qualified engagement. PitchLink requires no installation or download and holds the entire repository of sales collaterals and buyer-seller conversations. Talk to us to know more about how you can engage with customers without intrusion. Call us on 99021 631 32.
Ramli, this was wonderful. Thank you for making time.
Thank you, of course.
I really enjoyed, and I hope to catch up with you soon and talk to you soon. And
Appreciate it.
All the best.
Thank you.
We have a fantastic lineup over the next couple of episodes with great conversations on breakthrough books. Subscribe in your favorite podcast app so you do not miss a single episode. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for being with us today on Bits About Books, where we talk to authors about breakthrough books on sales, marketing, and business. We hope this conversation helped inform and motivate as we all navigate a rapidly changing business environment. For us, these are enlightening conversations enriched with knowledge and expertise. We encourage you to go out and buy the book to learn firsthand and implement some of the great ideas we discussed today. We hope to have you with us again in the next exciting episode of Bits About Books. If you liked what you heard, subscribe to the show in your favorite podcast platforms like iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, or wherever else you get your podcast from, and give us a rating while you are at it.
This Bizcast original podcast is produced for PitchLink, the next generation buyer-seller engagement platform, where the mission is to make buying easy. Hosted by Subhanjan Sarkar and produced by Rajiv Aditya. See you next time and have a wonderful day.